Hi, David.
Hi there. Is Nick available? I don't see Nick.
He's there.
Oh, okay. Because I want to make him host. Oh, there he is. Okay. Let's see.
Nick, are you available to be made host?
Yes, I am. As of right now. Can you hear me okay?
Okay, good. So let's see. Where do I do that?
Okay, girls.
So Nick, to make you host. Okay, there, make host. Okay, now you're host. Good. All right. Sorry for the delay. Let's see. Well, good evening, everyone. And before we move on, I'd like to have Nick inform you all about the technical overview for Zoom. This is Nick Simmons.
Hello, standard stuff. Please keep yourself muted until you're asked to speak. If you'd like to be recognized by the chair, there's a little button depending on which version of the Zoom client you're using to raise your hand. Sometimes it's under reactions, sometimes its own little button. So please raise your hand if you would like to be called on if you have a question. I will be muting folks that are unmuted. I cannot unmute you. If you are calling, I don't see any folks who have called in tonight, but *6 will unmute you if you call in from a phone. If you're on Vashon, please only join with one device, particularly from your house. Not only is feedback pretty bad, but internet being what it is on the island, often two devices will overwhelm the bandwidth. And if you're having trouble hearing or being heard, please disable the video. That usually lessens the bandwidth requirements as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Okay. Well, I'd like to welcome you all to the Vashon Community Council. Looks like we're just at about a quorum here. And let's see, I'd like to review the agenda. Does anyone here have any issues with the agenda that we have sent out to everyone? In terms of any changes, any corrections? Does, if you do, Kevin Jones, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you, David. I believe Allison Trundle has a motion that she'd like to introduce at this meeting. I don't know if that's possible, but I think Diane has been has received an email about that. I don't know if there's time in this agenda. It'd be nice if there were.
Well, we usually have, you know, open discussion towards the end or community update. So let's see if we can fit it in down there. Okay.
And just like to confirm with Allison that that would be okay. I know she and I have been emailing, but Allison, would that, just make sure, Allison, that you're okay with that. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Appreciate it, David. Thanks.
You're welcome. All right. Any other, let's see, I'm looking for any other hands raised. Don't see any, so I will adopt the agenda. And then,
Justin Hirsch would like to make an update about ferry service if we have time as well.
oh, okay. Okay, yeah, I believe we will have some time, so that will be good. So let's see. The minutes of last meeting, has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes from our last month's meeting? And if you have any changes or corrections to the minutes, please speak your piece. Okay, seeing no hands raised, I'm going to adopt the minutes from last month's meeting. And then I'd like to introduce our guests. Now we have with us today, Bong Santo Domingo. We have, let's see, John Taylor. John Taylor is here from King County. Yeah, good to see you, John. And is Lane here? Or I didn't see Lane in the list of people, but she's been meeting with us. And John, thank you for having her involved. She's been doing a great job. Okay. So committee and board updates. The Affordable Housing Committee, Morgan Brown is here. So Morgan, if you can give us a brief update regarding that committee, I'd certainly appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Let's see, last week, since you already mentioned it, we had, I invited Lane to come and talk to the committee, and we had a very stimulating discussion where she rolled out basically her project. It's an involvement with the 2024 county plan, where there are two work areas, if I've got the term right, that involve Vashon that they're revisiting. So even though our sub-area plan was done in 2016, 2017, this is actually something that's being folded into the 2024 overall comp plan for King County. And they are both related to housing and affordable housing. So we were very interested in hearing what she had to say. We had very stimulating discussion with, I think, a bunch of comments on both of them. The two, in fact, I apologize for the chat sent out to everybody, but I'm going to do it again right now and see if I get it right this time, because there will be some links on it. Lane has set up a website that explains this process, basically says why this is tied into the 2024 comp plan, and then the two work areas that they're basically looking at. And the first one is taking a look at all the special development conditions. If any of you are IMAC wonks, probably aren't, but like I am, and go up and look at all the different parcels and whatever the development conditions that are associated with that. There are different development conditions called these P suffix conditions for lots of parcels all over the island, but particularly a bunch in the area around the town. And they want to basically address those. I think some of it has to do with making them consistent with other areas and reviewing them, since a lot of it hasn't been done for, I guess, decades. So there are a couple that were very relevant to us. One of them is basically special development conditions for the town core. And that was a subject of a bunch of discussions we had on the Affordable Housing Committee. There are, without going too far into the weeds, there's some interesting stuff, and I think that'll come up later. There were some things that were done in 1996, 97 that weren't necessarily looked at in the context of having the housing crisis that we're in right now that we'd like sort of revisited. And then the other one is the very hot topic for those of us that were sort of involved in or watching closely the sub-area plan from 2016, 2017. Certainly a lot of discussion on the housing committee at that time was involved around the special overlay district that when it finally came out was restricted basically to 100% affordable housing projects in a pretty much taking up most of the rural town where they could increase the zoning up to 18 units per acre from either 8 or 12 all the way up to 18. And it was very controversial, if you remember it, and got wound up limited specifically just to affordable housing. From Lane, the comment on that, and some of us that have criticized it in the past have basically been that it has created exactly 0 projects that are asking for a single unit based on that. And so they're trying to understand why it hasn't worked and what could be done a little bit better. So they're revisiting it. So again, 2 things are going to be wrapped into this process, and Lane is going to be rolling this out in probably a bunch of different meetings. And we'll probably have her back to the Affordable Housing Committee a number of times to talk about it. But we had a really good sort of kickoff discussion on it. Again, the special development conditions sort of island-wide, but affects a lot of things in town, particularly the town core. And then the other one was the affordable housing incentives in general, but specifically the special overlay district for the town that allowed up to 18 units per acre, provided it was 100% affordable. So that was pretty much it, what we went over. It was pretty lively and engaging. So anybody have any questions on that?
Let's see, do we have any questions here? Don't see any raised hands, so thank you very much, Morgan, and thank you for chairing that committee. It's been a very interesting and, hopefully it'll be a real productive committee.
I hope so. I appreciate your involvement in it, David. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, next, let's see, do we have Kevin Jones of the Equity Committee?
Yes, you do.
Okay, if we can have
All right.
a brief statement about that.
I will. Thank you very much, David. The Equity, Social Justice, and Inclusion Committee has continued to work on our operating policies, but our discussions have centered around what do committee members want to influence based on the work that we are planning to do, and how do we achieve the outcomes that we seek. And in our last meeting, it was a lot of focus on resuming the outreach that we started when the committee was first formed. The early outreach was just to let people know of the existence of the committee, and the next steps in outreach will be refined at our next meeting, which is the 17th, this Wednesday this week, 6:30. And if you would like to participate in that, you can probably just put a note in the chat and I'll make sure that you hear the details. The other item is the motion mentioned earlier that Allison has been working on, is something that was discussed at the equity committee meeting. And so we'll basically just defer time to Allison to bring that up when the time is proper in the agenda. Any questions?
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Kevin. Don't see any. All right, now for an update from John Taylor with regard to the King County Local Services Division, update and questions. I believe there are questions on the plan for extended 1 ferry service, questions for sea level rise, and regarding Maury Island. John, thank you for coming.
Thanks very much. Good to see everybody. John Taylor, Director of the Department of Local Services. First, let me just start with a couple of high-level overview things, and then I'll get to the 2 questions. Or actually, there were more than 2. A couple other things came up, so I'll get to all of that. 1, while COVID case numbers remain kind of bumping along, things are getting better across the county. We, local services, have reinstated our community office hours. So we're back out in the community on a weekly basis. That includes both myself and economic development staff, as well as permitting staff. So keep an eye out for us out in the community. 2, this will be of interest to David. Looks like we're going to be executing our conservation corps contracts, and we have procured a bunch of garbage cans for free from Metro Transit.
All right.
We're changing out their garbage cans. So I don't have an implementation date, but I would say it is imminent to get street litter cans in Vashon, on Vashon.
Great.
Yeah. There's still some details to be worked out. Like I was just reading an email from Rhodes about if they're in the clear zone, they have to be breakaway bolts, and we'll figure all that out. But I would say within the next couple of months, we'll have them on the streets after much wait. We are getting ready for our biennial budget. My hope is we'll have, more investments and things that are going to make things better. I think you all went through a community needs list exercise with us. And so this will be the first county budget that speaks to those community needs lists and how departments are responding to them or not responding to them. For those who have participated in the town halls around that and surveys and all the work we did last year into early this year, these are lists of things that people want to see happen in community, and they're things that we will be addressing in the budget process, maybe not funding, but saying why we're not funding or why we're partially funding it. So kind of our response to community needs becomes more transparent. So just keep an eye out for that. And I'm sure Councilmember McDermott will be talking about it as he makes his travels around his district, including Vashon. There's a whole bunch of other stuff going on. A lot of it doesn't pertain to Vashon. 2 sub-area plans, one in Skyway, one in White Center. We just finished up about a year's worth of work on participatory budgeting in urban unincorporated King County. So, had about 2,600 people vote on things they wanted to see money spent on. Just lots of good things happening. And I'm, despite the weird global headwinds, I feel optimistic generally about the future of unincorporated King County. I think we're making headway. So 3 questions came up. One was about a SEPA notice that we sent out. One was about the changes in WashDOT's ferry schedule. And the third was, what are we doing about Dockton and the causeway between Maury and Vashon Island? Let me address those in kind of reverse order. So we are, and sorry, Linda Moore, you have a hand up. Go ahead and ask your question.
I don't need to ask it right away. I can do it after you're done with your presentation.
It's not a presentation. Jump in anytime. This isn't.
Oh, okay. Thank you, John.
Sure.
I've been wanting to bring this up, and I think you might be the person to talk to about this. I'm a pedestrian, so I walk to town frequently, pretty much almost every day. And there's a stretch of Bank Road east of the 4-way stop that is really dangerous for pedestrians and inaccessible to people with mobility impairment, especially those that are using wheelchairs. And I'm just wondering, who I would get in touch with to find out if it can get, if that area can get repaired. It's basically a section right along Thriftway parking lot that has concrete bollards that have been pushed in because of cars parking there. And so there's areas of that walkway that are it's only 2 feet wide, and it's very narrow and really dangerous. There really isn't any other option for people to, there's a sidewalk across the street along Island Lumber. But once you get to the alleyway, it's point-in parking along the florist. So there's no safe way for somebody to navigate from that section of sidewalk to get to the 4-way stop from that point. And I think about it every time I walk by there, and then I know there are other areas that probably need some attention as well, but this one feels like really important.
Okay. My good friend, Bong Santo Domingo, who was on this call as well, I am confident is taking notes and captured all of that. What we will do is forward that to the roads maintenance division and ask them to take a look at it. I think folks will remember we had a similar but more tragic conversation after we had a fatality about a year and a half ago in the middle of COVID. Came out, looked at it, and put in a flasher at the intersection of trying to remember now, but Bank and something else. Right by the
100th.
It's right
Yeah,
near
thanks.
the senior center.
Yeah, right by the senior center. So let's just do that and we can take a look at it and see if there's something that we can do. How does that sound? All right. Linda, anything else? Your hand is still up.
Linda?
Yeah, sorry, I muted myself. I have one more. Who would I get in touch with about areas of the sidewalk in town that gather signage and things like that that make it difficult for people to get around?
Road Services Division, they generally,
Okay.
they have the authority to remove sandwich boards from the right of way. If it's a hazard, we try to balance that with people trying to transact business, and we don't like to go out and sweep up all the sandwich boards and throw them away. But if you make roads maintenance aware of it, they will take a look at it and they can have a conversation with the business about how they're deploying their sandwich boards. And Bong just
Great.
eye on me and said he's on that as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. Kevin, you have a hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Just want to be clear that it sounds like contacting Bong is the appropriate path to raise issues like this. And
Yeah,
if
I
that's
mean,
true, could
Bong-
we make sure that Bong has his contact info in the chat so we can copy that out?
Yeah, actually, what I would suggest is, as a general principle, you're going to get a faster response. And this isn't, this makes it sound like Bong isn't fast. He is. Bong's really great. The roads maintenance, Bong, do me a favor and just throw the roads maintenance email and phone number in the chat. That is a better place to put these issues, because they have a massive database. They put these kind of service requests in right away. It goes straight to the district maintenance manager, and then it goes straight to the crews and they get on it there. And we track data on turnaround time. So that's one of the performance metrics for roads, is how fast they're responding to roads hotline and roads maintenance email requests. And they're really good. They're usually, the vast majority is within 48 hours, unless it's very complicated.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, sure.
Great.
And
Appreciate it.
Bong
Thanks.
probably has that committed to memory, so he'll just throw them right in the chat. Okay, seeing no other requests, I'm going to take the last issue first, which is the isthmus between Stockton and Maury Islands, and the concern. Diane sent me an email. I'll read her question. With the high winter times, it won't be long before Maury Island is inaccessible by car during storm surges and king tides, and it will only get worse. Has there been any discussion in the county about this? What is the county doing? What should residents be doing? Yeah, there's been a lot of discussion about this at the county. It's a point of concern. It was highlighted during the development of the Strategic Climate Action Plan. This is one area where we know that there are going to be sea level rise impacts. There's a difference between our awareness and our ability to act swiftly to address this issue. We have done a lot of work in the last couple of years shoring up Stockton, and people may have seen those projects being done. That doesn't deal with the sea level rise issues. We have a request into WashDOT for a $750,000 grant to do feasibility and options analysis for a replacement for that road that would be resilient to climate change. I want to be really clear with people. Our high level estimate for that project is $100 million. And so for context, the entire budget for the road services division annually is about $100 million. So this isn't something that we're going to be able to deal with on the backs of unincorporated King County property taxpayers. Our capital improvement plan on an annual basis is maybe $20 million. And that's got to be spread out around the entire county. And we are rapidly heading towards a point of no return with our finances because of the 1% cap on property taxes. And, you know, I've had the pleasure of decommissioning at least one bridge, and we'll be decommissioning more bridges as time goes by because we're just going to elect not to repair them. To solve this problem will take high level action at the state and federal level. It would require some sort of legislation that came with an enormous amount of money to undertake such a project. So just FYI, that's kind of where we are. But the way you start a process like that is developing options and having, you know, having more accurate cost estimates that you can take to your congressional delegation and others and go seeking state and federal funding to complete such a project. And just so you know, that this isn't the only place where we have this circumstance. We have a causeway in the Snoqualmie Valley that is increasingly inundated by floods during the winter and cuts off the city of Duval. We have some other roads like that in the Snoqualmie Valley that need significant upgrades. So at some point in time, my expectation would be there is going to be a high-level public policy discussion about what do we do about climate change? What do we do about resiliency? And how do we marshal the resources we need to actually make ourselves resilient against climate change? And the way to start is this grant and this feasibility work, which I think we feel pretty comfortable we're likely to get it, but I can't say we have it in hand yet. So that's that. Any questions, comments, concerns about that? All right. Hearing none, I will move on to the second topic, which is if for some reason we end up on a one-boat schedule on the north end for an exterior dependent time, say several months, would that count as an emergency? Some commuters would lose their jobs. Some Vashon businesses relying on tourism would fail. We would be hard pressed to get off-island contractors to come over. Even worse than now, emergency medical teams would be curtailed and may result in loss of life. Flood and medicine shipments may well be delayed or canceled. Some commuters to the island would quit or be fired, and who knows what else. What might King County help us with if these things happen? It's hard for me to say at this point that that would rise to a level where we would declare a state of emergency. I think we, King County, are always open to having conversations about how we can do a better job of supporting the community during these periods when ferry service is disrupted. I'll just be candid with you all. I don't see any signs on the horizon that ferry service is going to get better in the near term. They got a boat down. They've got staffing shortages like everybody else. Theirs are more significant because of what it takes to become a deckhand and a skipper and an engineer, high levels of training. So, you know, and I just, all I know is a story I heard on the radio about that, and that they're really trying to beef up the pipeline from the Maritime Academy in the Puget Sound region because of those staffing issues. But I think we've all seen it. I have a sister who lives on San Juan Island. She's faced huge problems over the last several months getting on and off the island because of the challenges they face. It's endemic to the ferry system. It isn't just Vashon. It was, of course, exacerbated on Vashon by the collision with the dock in Fauntleroy. Melvin, you have a question?
Yeah, is there any information on the cause of the Fauntleroy crash?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, that's still all open.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I guess what I would say to you all is, you know, we will, of course, work with you any way we can, but I don't want to lead people down the primrose path. I guess, Diane, we could declare a state of emergency. I don't think it would result in more ferries being available or more crews or anything else. And if you have life safety issues, we would send a helicopter to get someone off the island. We would life flight them out. So, David, do you have a question?
Yeah, when we have these one boat schedules, would there be any move from the water taxi to increase service?
I'm open to raising that with Metro. They certainly did it after the ferry crash, and it could be something that they look at adjusting the schedule. They have their own staffing issues, I know, but they've been really good throughout the pandemic in keeping those boats running. So I will absolutely elevate that to Metro and ask them that question, see if there's some way they could augment service.
Also, is there a chance to augment service for weekends on the water taxi?
Let me ask, and I'll get back to you, and either, we can revisit this at the next meeting, or we can have someone from Metro have a conversation with you.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. The last issue was, there was a SEPA notice that went out on the county's comprehensive plan, and it used some language that I think was confusing to folks. It just said, and I don't remember the exact language, but it's essentially, it sort of said, hang on, let me just see if I can pull up the, some of the ways to build it. Oh, it said the comprehensive plan update, quote, has the potential for significant adverse impacts on the environment. And thus we are undertaking a SEPA review to determine if it has like a determination of significance. So that is just pro forma language we use. I talked with the comprehensive plan team today, and I'm just going to read you what they sent to me, so I don't butcher this, because I'm not a planner by trade. I'm a generalist. SEPA requires a review of land use policy documents such as the comprehensive plan and related regulations for their potential impacts to factors of the environment as defined by state regulations. These factors include, but are not limited to, things like water and land resources, land and shoreline use, recreation, housing, transportation, critical areas, public services, natural environments, historic preservation, climate, noise, scenic resources, energy, etc. For the 2024 update, the county has determined that the potential policy and regulatory actions anticipated may have a probable significant impact on these factors. Thus, we will be pursuing analysis, review, and consideration of alternatives under SEPA. So there are the questions I was getting, and I got them from a couple of people, is like, what are these critical impacts? There are no specific critical impacts that we're aware of. We just know that the comprehensive plan is a big sweeping policy document. And so we're going to be undertaking a SEPA review, operating on the assumption that there could be critical impacts, significant impacts. So that's really it for those who asked that question. There is nothing we're aware of right now that is an adverse impact. We just are doing a SEPA review in an abundance of caution because of the massive scope of the comprehensive plan update. Sorry. I think those were the big issues that I was aware of that had come over before the meeting, but I'm happy to field questions on any and all topics. And I will, if I can't make up an answer, I will get you one from someone who is smarter than me, which is the vast majority of people who work at King County. Melvin, your hand went up first, then Evie, then James.
Yeah, thanks, John. I just received in the mail today my official property value notice. And I'm wondering on the island if mine is typical. My property value appraisal went up more than 35% this year. Is that typical?
I think I can't say what constitutes typical. It doesn't, to me, and I'm just saying this as someone who wanders around the county a lot, it doesn't sound outsized from what other people are experiencing elsewhere in the county. It's a red hot real estate market. It remains that way.
Wow.
I will just say on a point of personal privilege, I recently sold a home that I bought a little over 2 years ago, and it went up 50% in value in 2 years. So I don't think that is an unusual increase. Property on Vashon, may typically be more valuable than property elsewhere in the county, but it doesn't sound outsized to me. I would point out to folks that your appraisal or your assessment going up doesn't translate into higher property taxes. In fact, we are statutorily prohibited from increasing your property taxes based on increased assessed valuation. So unless you pass voter approved levies or in other ways take action to affirmatively impose new taxes, the maximum amount your taxes can go up per year is 1%. So mercifully for you, that shouldn't impact your property tax bill. Evie, I think I said you were next.
Thank you. That seems like very good information to know, relevant to Melvin's question. My question is about, and do you know anything about the community van? Is it in its pilot stage? Do you know when that expires?
It's remains a pilot program, but we just formalized the coordinator position. So it's going to be running for the foreseeable future. It is funded for the next 2 years, absolutely. So it will still be here.
Right on. Thank you.
Sure. James, you were next.
Hi, John. This is Jim Garrison. I'm wondering if you have any update on the notorious and ongoing RAP situation.
Rat?
Recycled asphalt products.
Oh, RAP.
Yeah, like on the radio.
Yeah, sorry. Jim, all I can tell you, and this was a while ago, we won in court, and now I think it's so sort of we prevailed against the sub who spread it, and they are now being sort of beaten up by both us and Icon, who was the contractor. There were 2 suits. We both prevailed. And there's an order, but I honestly don't know where we are in the implementation of that order. So that's about as much as I can tell you. I apologize. I can get you an update on it. I'm happy to.
Okay, yeah, I'd appreciate it. Maybe you could send a little something to David, and I'll get it through David.
Yeah, I've got your email.
Okay.
I can send it to both of you, kind of a status report.
Thank you very much, John.
Yeah, happy to. Other questions, comments, concerns, Barb, remarks? All right, seeing none.
Actually,
yeah, go ahead, David.
And this is something Jim brought up to me. There have been some harassing actions taken by drone owners in some beachfront areas where, they're dive bombing neighbors and this and that. And so I checked the law on drones, and there is very little law on drones, but it's being enacted on a county by county basis. So I was wondering if King County was taking any actions to restrict harassment by drones.
Not to the best of my knowledge. It would be a good conversation to have with Councilmember McDermott, and I don't know who would enforce that. I would tell you right now.
The sheriffs would enforce it.
It would be, we on the 4th of July implemented the first ban on fireworks in King County. And the way we did that was pretty unique for jurisdictions around here, and I think most places. And what we did was we had calls forwarded either from 911 or they called into a direct line, or they used the permitting website to open up what essentially amounts to a code enforcement case. But what we did was got from the people the information on who was setting off the fireworks and where, and then we sent them a warning letter this year. Next year, it'll be a $150 citation. And the reason we did that was talking to the sheriff. They were like, these on the 4th of July, these are our lowest priority calls. We never actually get to them. And even if we do get to them, we get to them so late that by the time we get there, the offense has been long gone. So I think just something to think about with, drones on an island like Vashon, where you have 2 sheriff's deputies at all, at the most. So I think, you really need to be thinking about how you would enforce it, because it would be very difficult to enforce in my view. But worth exploring for sure.
Okay.
Another way to go would be to get yourself a bow and arrow or a crossbow and deal with them in that way, or a falcon. I'm a big fan of the YouTube videos where birds of prey smash into the drones and take them out.
Okay.
Well, the problem with that, John, is that the court so far, without prohibitive legislation or ordinances from the county, they will actually honor the property destruction charge by the drone owner. So I don't think you want to encourage anybody to destroy any drones, because that will cost them significant amount of money.
James, I want to be really clear. That was a joke.
Well, yeah, just be careful about your jokes these days.
As a bureaucrat, it would be irresponsible of me to suggest that anyone should destroy private property or any other property. So I retract my joke. Emily, you have a hand up. And you're muted. There you
Thanks, John. Yeah, here I am. So I'm the executive director of the Vashon Food Bank. I'll be giving a very informal update to the group about, our exciting plans for the future, but not knowing if you were going to stick around for the rest of the meeting, I just wanted to put a plug in and let you know I've got you're towards the top of my to contact list about, how we can just work in partnership with the county and everybody else to, make the move, and then our ongoing presence in town as copacetic and neighborly as possible. So
yeah, I'm gonna hang out. So
oh, great. Okay,
but thanks for the plug, and give me a call.
sure. I will.
Cool. Anything else?
Okay. Thank you, John.
All right.
Good job.
Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure, you all.
Okay.
I'm hanging out. I'll be here. If other questions come up, just ping me.
Thanks very much for hanging too.
Sure.
Okay. The next item is old business, and we were going to vote on changes with regard to the VMICC officers. Gavin Kovite, the board has asked to appoint him as our clerk, and C. Hunter Davis to be secretary. And Gavin will be taking minutes, and C. Hunter Davis will be handling correspondence and organizational records. So the motion to be voted on would be, we approve these changes in officers of the VMICC, Gavin Kovite as clerk and C. Hunter Davis as secretary. This was moved and seconded, so it's now time for a vote. So I'd like to call the question, and all those in favor of approving Gavin Kovite as our new, clerk, and C. Hunter Davis as secretary, please indicate by raising your hands in the reactions, or if you're incapable of doing that, raise your regular hand. Okay. So Nick, are you going to help count? 6, 7, 8, 9, I have 17 in favor. Nick, do you have the same number? Okay.
David, I'm not seeing the ballot.
Oh, okay. The issue was, the motion is,
I
are
got the-
all
I got the
those
ba-
in
I
favor?
got the motion. I just don't see the ballot.
Oh, there is no ballot. We did not produce a ballot. We're just voting on by hand.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Okay. So yeah, there you go. I see
Yep.
that hand.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just looking for the ballot somewhere over on the right.
Yeah, no, but thanks. That okay, so we've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I count 19, 18 hands and
Yeah.
one clap.
Yeah, I have 19 too. Okay, all those opposed to this, please lower your hands if you voted before. And all those opposed, please raise your hands now. I see none opposed. So I would say that the
I see
motion
one
carries.
opposed. I see one opposed.
Really? Where do you see an opposed?
Oh. It was Kathleen Fitch, but she took it down.
And I believe that was from the previous question.
Yeah, that was a tardy lowering of the hand. All right. 19-0 is the vote. The motion passes. All right. Next item is
Point of order.
yes, Melvin.
There a recording of our quorum in the minutes?
We have right now we have 33 participants with 2 off-island participants. That's 31 people. That's 6 more than a quorum.
I know, but it needs to be recorded in the minutes if you want to have that vote count.
Okay, Gavin, if you could record that in the minutes, just to indicate that this was a valid vote.
Duly recorded, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Melvin. Okay. Next item is new business. We're now ready to dissolve the VMICC. The board has met and approved a resolution to dissolve the Vashon-Maury Island Community Council. It is now time for the membership to vote on it. And I do think that this calls for a discussion. The motion would be, we move to dissolve Vashon-Maury Island Community Council. And today we need the motion to be made and seconded. The actual vote to dissolve will take place at the September meeting, and you'll need to be signed up as a member of the Vashon-Maury Island Community Council, or would that be the Vashon?
It needs to be members of the older organization.
Of the older
to vote on
organization,
its
okay.
dissolution.
To vote on this motion, correct. Contact Diane Emerson to confirm your membership or sign up to be a member. And membership is free. Okay. So I'll entertain a motion if someone wishes to make that motion to dissolve the existing Vashon-Maury Island Community Council.
So moved.
Okay, and do I see a second?
I will second it.
All right, moved by Diane Emerson, seconded by Nick Simmons. Great. And do we want any discussion at this point?
I think it would be good to have some preliminary discussion or answer questions. We can always have more discussion at the vote, but if
Sure.
anyone has any concerns or questions, now would be a good time to raise them.
Sure.
Yeah, Becca in the chat, just why are we dissolving the Vashon-Maury Island Community Council? Why is it necessary? What's the rationale behind it?
Okay.
I'm happy to go over that, David, unless you'd like to.
Well, go right ahead, Diane.
Okay. It became clear to us when we were setting up the organization again, the Community Council in 2021, we were setting it up as a 501c3 organization. And it became clear to us after a while that 501c3, which is a social service organization, limits us a lot as a community council in being able to lobby King County or state government, for example, in any way. And so we would be much more effective for the island if we were a 501c4 organization, which doesn't have the limits on us doing lobbying and promoting a particular statute or even if we wanted to someone to be elected. So the organization decided to set ourselves up as a 501c4, and we were advised that the best way to do this would be to go ahead and set up the new organization, the 501c4 organization, and once that's set up, then dissolve the old organization. So it becomes a seamless process. So we can still have our meetings and still continue on our business, and that's what we've been doing, having shared meetings these last few months. And now the 501c4 organization with a new name, et cetera, is set up. And so it's time to dissolve the old organization.
Okay. I see a question from Armin. Are all participants official members?
We have a quorum of official members that are on our membership list. I've been checking those names, and we definitely have 25 members.
Okay, but I think in other respects, just because someone is participating does not mean that they're a member. How do you become a member, Diane?
You become a member by contacting me and letting me know that you want to be a member, because we can't add anyone to as a member unless they specifically say, I wish to be a member. So that's important. And membership is open to people who reside on the island, either full or part-time, and are 18 years of age or older. And that's it. So we ask for your mailing address. We ask for what email address you wish to use for your membership, if you have an email address, and whether you're 18 years of age or older. Yeah, basically, it's very simple. And there's no obligation to attend meetings, or we don't have any dues. So it's quite simple. And we encourage people to go ahead and set that up so that you can vote, because you can't make a motion or you can't vote if you're not a member.
Okay. I saw that there was a question from Becca with regard to why are we not officially recognized by King County? Now, what had happened in the past is that King County not only recognized rural area councils, including Vashon-Maury Island Community Council, but gave us a $10,000 operating stipend. And by so doing, they made the Vashon-Maury Island an agency of King County. And for that reason, as an agency of King County, we were subject to the Public Records Act, which is very onerous for a volunteer organization. And there was a threat of lawsuit at the time around 2010. And as a result, the Vashon-Maury Island Community Council resigned en masse and dissolved. So rather than seek official recognition and the potential of agency, have rear its ugly head again, we choose to remain an unofficial organization. And the other thing that is often asked is, well, how much authority do you have then? And essentially, we have the authority that we are perceived to have. Okay? And we like it that way. Okay? Because this way we can't tell people what to do. Kevin, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, David, could you clarify for motions introduced in this meeting, which is of the VMICC, do
Okay.
those motions get carried over into the VMCC, or could you elaborate how that process works for us?
Well, we're not going to be dissolved until sometime during the September meeting, but Diane, do you want to address that issue?
Yes, the committees that are operating, will continue to operate. It would be a good idea if there's any motions to be made that they follow the guidelines of the the new organization. And in fact, that motions should probably start being made, since we do have this new organization, once we switch over to running that meeting. We're so used to running the meetings with the old organization. It's a mind shift, a shift to having these agendas show the new organization and these discussions and motions for the new organization. So in this little transition time when we are dissolving, it could be in either one, depending on what's most appropriate for the motion.
So just to thank you for that, Diane, just to be clear then, a motion introduced in this meeting today will be scheduled for a vote in the September meeting of the VMICC. And as long as we hold to that schedule, it sounds like we don't have to worry about this question. But if there's a delay and somehow that motion gets deferred beyond the September meeting, does it have to be reintroduced in the VMCC?
I haven't given that any thought yet. That's a very good
Okay.
question. I think
So
it
it
would
could
be
be that
to be on the safe side, motions should be introduced and voted on with the new organization from this point, if we can do it that way, and I don't see why we can't.
or we could, what I would respectfully request is that a motion that's made in this meeting be scheduled in advance of the dissolution vote of the motion you're introducing now, if that's at all possible.
Tell me that
Given
again.
So there will be a motion introduced in this meeting.
Yes, and the dissolution
If
vote will
it's-
happen next month.
And the motion that's introduced in this meeting will be presumably scheduled on next month's agenda.
Yes.
If it is scheduled before the dissolution vote of the VMICC, then that motion introduced in this meeting will have an opportunity to vote on it in the September meeting.
I
But
don't
if
see
it's
why we
scheduled-
wouldn't just go ahead and do it in the new organization instead of having to worry about the dissolution. Let's just go ahead and make the motion and run it through with the new organization. It doesn't make sense to try to slide it in the VMICC to me.
Okay, I just want to avoid the problem of having to introduce this motion in next month or the month after.
Exactly.
Because the new organization doesn't exist right now.
No,
The
it
motion
does. But
Oh,
keep in
I see.
mind,
Thank
the
you
new
for, okay.
organization does exist. We exist. We have an EIN. We have a bank account. We've got money in the bank. We absolutely exist.
Okay, so the motion proposed to be made today will be made as a motion essentially to the VMCC.
That's
I
right.
think it has to be a
Thank
motion
you.
made to both of the organizations, Kevin, knowing what the motion is. You make it for
Okay.
to the old and the new. That's what I would do.
Thank you, Hunter. I appreciate the clarification. And as we get to that point in the discussion today, hopefully we'll have clarity at that point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Let's see, the plan of dissolution, the board has adopted the following resolution for a plan of dissolution. A fee of $300 cash will be given to the Vashon-Maury Island Community Council by the Vashon-Maury Community Council in consideration of use of the website, mailing list, and logo. Since there are no outstanding debts of the Vashon-Maury Island Community Council, the $300 shall be donated to Vashon Household, a 501c3 nonprofit. Okay. The motion is pending approval by the Washington Attorney General. We approve the following plan of dissolution. A fee of $300 cash will be given to the Vashon-Maury Island Community Council by the Vashon-Maury Community Council in consideration of use of the website, mailing list, and logo. 2, since there are no outstanding debts of the Vashon-Maury Island Community Council, the $300 shall be donated to Vashon Household, a 501c3 nonprofit. So is someone going to make that motion? I would entertain someone making this motion. Any of our board members could do that.
I'm happy to make that motion.
Okay, Diane. Robert, your hand is up. Are you seconding the motion?
I am.
Great. So the motion has been made and seconded. And let's see. The vote for the plan of dissolution will be taken at the September meeting if the vote for dissolution passes at that same meeting. Okay, now Justin Hirsch is present.
Point of order, David?
Yes?
I think we should allow for some time for discussion about the plan of dissolution as well.
Sure. Okay. Does anyone have questions about this? Does anyone want to make any statements with regard to this plan? Okay, well, if it hadn't been so non-controversial, we might have had a need for discussion, but it seems to be fairly clear-cut and well-designed. So thank you, Diane.
I'd also like to say that I have very carefully followed all the guidelines in the Washington state laws that apply to notice and how we're doing this. And we are absolutely doing it by the book. So just wanted to confirm that for everybody. I've been very careful to make sure we're doing it the correct way.
Okay. All right. And I see there's a question from Armin. How does this explanation relate to the bylaws, which state all island residents over 16 are automatically members? Well, I think under the new state laws, that is no longer permissible. So that is why we've changed that rule for the VMICC, because we need to be in compliance with all laws of the state. And so thank you for your question, Armin. All right. Now, Justin Hirsch is here with regard to ferry discussion, and there may be a need for some more time.
We have time scheduled.
Okay. Justin, are you there?
I am.
Great.
And I'm just pulling stuff here. I don't have all that much. I'm sure there'll be a bunch of questions I'm not able to answer, but I do have just a few things to mention. Just as a caveat, so everybody knows, once again, I don't work for ferries. I'm an islander. And I take information that I get from ferries and pass it on to the community, and then hopefully collect items of concern from the community and then reflect that back to ferries. So the idea is just to be a conduit of information there. Frustratingly, as was alluded to earlier, there's basically no plan, no change to what they're calling the service restoration plan since it was last issued June 21st. They are prioritizing certain routes. So far those are Anacortes San Juans, Seattle Bainbridge, Mukilteo Clinton, Edmonds Kingston is next in front of us, and then the Triangle route. So we are probably going to live with our 2 boat service, not 1, hopefully, but 2 for quite a while. As a note to that, after the Cathlamet incident, the fact that Ferries had another vessel, the Kitsap, ready to go, waiting at Eagle Harbor when the crash occurred, was a key factor in how Ferries was able to restore 2-boat service pretty quickly. And I don't want to just gloss over that point. Obviously, the Cathlamet crash is a pretty terrible incident, and I'm sure the state and everyone in it will be talking about it for quite a while to come. The point is that if we have enough vessels, if we're not constantly short of vessels, if we build enough, as the current state budgets plan to do, then we have vessels available when things like this happen. And it was actually only a matter of hours, really, before they were able to put the Kitsap back in service, and I myself took it home back to the island from Fauntleroy about 4 o'clock that afternoon. So as far as service restoration, that's where we're at. So still issues with crewing levels, and there's still issues with COVID affecting crew. We saw some crew shortages after a crew member tested positive last week, and of course that necessitates the removal from the workforce of that crew member and then several crew members that worked around them. Obviously not an ideal situation. We're probably going to live with that reality for quite a while. As far as fixing the crewing problem, Ferries has created what they're calling the AB to Mate program. So there's a pipeline now where their incumbent workforce of AB or able-bodied seafarers can sign up for training provided by WSF to become mates, which is one of the key positions that's been lacking. It does take a very long time to get a mate's license. That's not a Washington State thing. That's a Coast Guard requirement. It takes sea time. It takes an extraordinary amount of training. So there are a number, and I'm sorry I don't have that number, but there are a number of able-bodied seafarers in the Washington State ferry system who have signed up for that AB to Mate program. So that definitely helps. Ferries is also helping a number of their existing mates get their pilotage certificates, which enables them to navigate the boats. So they are putting training programs in place. Obviously, these are going to take a while to work. I shared my personal opinion with WSF, which is that, quite frankly, these training programs are great, and they would have been even better 5 years ago. What else? So I don't have any new information on the Cathlamet elision. Probably everybody has read in the Beachcomber and the Seattle Times everything that there is to know about it. Just keep in mind that, you know, a lot of speculation about what happened there is not really helpful, either to Ferries or to the investigation itself. I have heard anecdotally that all of the drug and alcohol screens from the crew that were aboard the Cathlamet that day all came back negative. So that's been ruled out as a factor. Ultimately, the vessel, as does every American flagged vessel, carries an event data recorder. So that will record absolutely every single rudder action command, every bridge engine command. It also includes conversations that occur on the bridge. So investigators are no doubt pouring through that right now. I'm completely certain that the National Transportation Safety Board will issue a report, and I'm sure we'll all pour over it when it comes out. So we will ultimately know or have a pretty good idea what the cause was, but we don't have it now, and we need to just let that process play out as it often does whenever something like this occurs. Last bit that I have, unless, I don't know, Emily, not to put you on the spot, if you wanted to talk about some of the Fauntleroy stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I just happened to, I came here to talk about food bank stuff, but I might as well talk about ferries too. They actually, I'm on the community advisory group for the Fauntleroy, the terminal replacement project. It's been a while since we had a meeting. They're doing it in kind of, phases. So the next meeting is coming up in a few weeks where they're going to look at the phase 2 criteria screening. And, frankly, it feels to me like the process so far, I think it's been great. And I know I have unpopular opinions, I think, about Ferry sometimes, because I think that administratively they're doing a good job. And the process has been pretty comprehensive. And the options that are kind of surfacing to the top based on that first phase of screening, like criteria, are, I think, what everybody would expect, which is, the dock, I think is going to be expanded one direction or another. So there's another meeting in a couple weeks, and I'm happy to come back to the next meeting of this group and, talk about how that goes. It is interesting, like in any situation where there's multiple different communities, all of whom had like stakeholders with different priorities, who the loudest voices are, and the Fauntleroy community really, they had their muscle for making their voices heard is strong. They're very practiced. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much all. There is, I don't know if you have all noticed, there's a pretty strong a group that just was kind of formed recently trying to preserve the little park that's next to the terminal there. They've renamed it a children's park, I think, for, leverage, because people want kids to have somewhere to play. So, there's just it's an interesting kind of public, like a gnarly public situation, because they're ultimately, like any negotiation, I think it will be successful when everybody walks away feeling like they didn't get what they want, which is probably what's going to happen. So, yeah.
So, looks like next community advisory group meeting is September 21. And so I posted the link for the WSF page with the info. And now I'll post the link for people who want to sign up to view that meeting. And just a side comment that on a random, I happened to see Senator Wynn on a nice sunny day crossing on ferries, riding a motorcycle onto the ferry, happened to be right behind me. And I did not miss the opportunity to talk to him about the importance to our community of the Fauntleroy dock. I know he's fully engaged, but it certainly doesn't hurt to reflect that back to lawmakers when that comes up. Let's see, where's my link here?
Justin, I see that Robert Piston has a hand up.
Yeah, hopefully we can take some questions, and we'll answer everything we can, and hopefully we can get some facts and opinions and things of that nature to reflect back to WSF for their consideration.
So is this a good time for me to ask my question?
Sure.
All right. So the legislature commissioned the University of Washington to do a study about the Fauntleroy, or specifically the Triangle route. And in December 2018, they came back with their recommendations. And it was really quite clear. They said, the very best thing that can be done would be to implement the good to go system on the Fauntleroy dock. I think they said the Southwest dock also, but I'm not sure. But and I don't ever seem to hear anybody referring to the study or anything that's come out of it. Does anybody have any idea if is a study something that's common knowledge among the people who are working on this problem? Are they addressing it? Are they saying, no, we're not going to do that? And if they are saying that, if they're saying that, do we know why they're not going to do anything?
I'll take a pass at that, Justin, because I don't know. So Robert, hello, first of all, Robert is also a volunteer at the food bank. He drives home deliveries for us. I don't know if you checked the pen name on the bylines for that report, but I was actually one of the research assistants, which is really the only reason I know anything about ferries. So I think like so many things that was, commissioned by the legislature and all the, responses that came from that research and reporting project, I think they're like piecemeal being accepted, but nothing like so many things, we didn't come away with a silver bullet. Because even good to go, if you implement it immediately, there's still constraints about the size of that street and the not conflict, I would say, but challenges that come with a washed stop property that is abutted right up next to an SDOT managed roadway in a residential area with very high housing, so I guess ultimately all that to say, I think there's some useful information in there, and it's who knows? I have not, I imagine that, and again, this is speculation, but implementing good to go even on the dock with the size constraints that it has right now would see marginal returns, but really the ultimate, it's the dock needs to be bigger. And if good to go were integrated in there as well, that's probably it. I think it's the dock, the size of the dock is the elephant in the room, honestly.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Jump
Yeah,
in.
I would absolutely agree with you. And I did not see your name on that. I looked back at it. I see your name very prominently right there. Really appreciate all the work that everybody did. And it seems like all that work and nobody's paying very much attention to it. But
and that was actually the second or third, I think, that the legislature engaged with UW. So, I mean, I think it's one of those problems that you can dig into it, but at the end of the day, like I was saying, the issue is that there's a conflict between the broad public transportation needs and then private property owners, and that dock is the dock is the issue,
Emily, if I remember correctly, their response, I think WSF was concerned about loss of passenger revenue with a good to go system.
Mhm.
And also how do they measure the different fares for, senior or youth?
Yeah. That is very complicated. I think it's easy to overlook the fact that, and I'm forgetting of so long ago, and I'm so otherwise busy these days, Robert, but there's no fewer than 16 different ways that you can buy a ticket to get on the ferry at Fauntleroy, depending on how many people are in your car and what kind of money or credit card or however you're going to use. So the conflict, like Justin's saying, the whole transaction process is really quite complicated, and even good to go, I think, wouldn't really solve all the issues, although it would, like I said, improve. But
I was impressed by the study. I thought it sounded like good to go would solve a lot of the issues. And I think just by looking at the amount of revenue that's currently generated and dividing that by the number of vehicles that goes on, it would be fairly easy to make sure that it was revenue neutral, but that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Well, Robert, I'm happy to, at the next advisory group meeting, that good to go comes up all the time, and I'm happy to bring it up again and just, ask for some official Ferry's administrative language about where that stands, or, so to get kind of an update for you all. Also, I'm impressed that you read that study. It's 85 pages of, I think very exciting material. I don't know.
I thought it was a great study, and it seemed like you made a very good case for good to go. Thank you.
Melvin Mackey has a hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I have a question about the south end of the island, the Tahlequah Point Defiance. Recently, the last several times I've gone on that route, the Stealth was there instead of the Chetzemoka, which is a larger boat. And in the past, there have been times with the Chetzemoka when cars are left behind because the lines are longer than the boat can handle. And I'm wondering what the plans, if are for how long the Stealth will be there. And I think it's a great improvement.
That is an excellent question. I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head, but what I can do while I'm answering other questions is try and look at the layup schedule for vessels and just see if I can get pick a date out of there for how long we might expect to have that.
I also don't know the answer to that question.
I'll need to dig into my email for a second here, but typically they send us a schedule, and it's system wide. It looks like the last one is July 7, and can download it. I bet that there is a way that I can actually put this document in the chat. And of course, it's public record, so there's no reason I can't share it widely. And see how efficiently I can do this with as few clicks as possible. All right. So there's the document stuff in the chat. Let me pull it up here. Sorry to take everyone's time while we're doing this. I'm trying to go as fast as possible. Let's see, Linda has a question, and maybe I'll have this document up by the time we get through that.
Thank you. I'm just really curious if anybody else has thought of this. With the understanding that the dock was down after that collision and that we only had access to and from the island through the south end, I thought about like how we get our fuel for our cars, how we get our food for our groceries. It's like a lifeline for us. It's not just about the people that want to come over and be tourists. I think it's more important that the things that we need to survive on the island need to have access. And I'm just wondering, is there any talk or desire to talk about how we as a community can come together and not wait for the state or the feds to say we're in an emergency, but we can enact a plan, an emergency plan, if something like that happens again, that we can issue a statement that suggests that ferry on the south end is for just the emergency that we need, and that if people don't need to go off the island, that they stay home. Just curious how anybody feels about that possibility.
Linda, I think it's a good question. And, I bet that there's someone in the Vashon Be Prepared world who has walked through that very scenario before.
And
does that
the
group
yacht
ever
club
come
has
in?
a list. Sorry to interrupt. The
Oh,
yacht
no, go
club
ahead.
has a list of private boat owners who can ferry, who could move people and stuff in an emergency situation.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there's commercial licensing issues, but I think in an emergency we would just do what had to be done.
Mm-hmm.
But I think maybe the second part of that was the announcement, and that would be an interesting idea.
Mm-hmm. Linda, it also strikes me that, Vashon being in the funny place it is in unincorporated King County with no municipal government, like that's an issue. There would be like an emergency planning department, and somebody's, job would be to walk through those scenarios. And King County is very busy, obviously. So I don't know if that exists, but I think that I bet somebody over at Vashon Be Prepared has mulled that over before.
If I could just contribute, that's the Maritime Emergency Response Team, the MERT, similar to a CERT. And so you could contact Vashon Be Prepared, and I'm sure they could put you in touch with folks from the MERT,
Mm-hmm.
and you'd be able to contact them and have that conversation.
That's wonderful. Thank you
Great.
very much for that, Kevin.
Justin, I see John Taylor's hand is raised.
Yes, and let me take a stab at answering the previous question, which is, looking at the layup schedule that I see right now, it looks like the South is scheduled for service relief through September 19, if I'm reading that right. So, all subject to change. Okay, John.
Yeah, I was just gonna say on the emergency response plan, we've done a lot of work over the last 40 years with Vashon Be Prepared, and have created much tighter linkages between the Office of Emergency Management and Vashon Be Prepared. And there are now agreements in place to delegate local authority to Vashon Be Prepared in emergencies. I don't specifically know what plans are in place for, disruption of ferries, but I would be shocked if there wasn't, work that had been done. That's an obvious obstacle that would occur in a major disaster in the region. So I think reaching out to them is a great idea, and we're happy to be part of those discussions. And in my time with the county and before being out on Vashon, I don't remember a time when there were tighter linkages between the county and Vashon. So just an observation.
That's great. Thank you so much. Hunter? Oh, sorry, you're still muted.
It happened years ago when there was a strike and people just got together and used private boats, and it worked just fine. It was about a week. So it can happen.
Good to know. Be nice to have more dock facilities around the island to facilitate something like that. Particularly, in my opinion, for Tramp Harbor, because there historically was a functional dock there, and it's right across the water from the Des Moines Marina, which has a ferry to downtown now, ironically enough. All right, one in the chat. Okay, from Kevin. Maritime Emergency Response Teams led by Jim Hauser. MERT charters focus primarily on damage injury assessment, although the ability to move people into has been discussed. Justin says there's undoubtedly rules and liability issues. Raising this issue to the Vashon Be Prepared team is a good way to have your voice heard. Thanks, Kevin. I forgot one little announcement. So our turnstiles at Fauntleroy are going to be, our passenger turnstiles at Fauntleroy are getting some work done this week to make them ADA compliant. So they're going to take out the sort of 3-post spinny wheel and put in the ADA compliant, I don't know what you call them, but paddles. It's sort of a different gate. Sorry, it's my dishwasher in the back. Okay, well, if there's nothing else, I'll give it back to you, David.
All right, thank you very much, and thanks for that update. And now I'll give it right back to Emily Scott, who is going to talk to us about the Vashon-Maury Community Food Bank and their move to Vashon Town. Emily?
Yeah, thank you. So I have nothing really formal to announce or say. I just figured, in the interest of starting a productive kind of public dialogue and making sure that, everyone knows that the food bank has plans to be really constructive and communicative neighbors, and to, we're really excited about becoming kind of part of the fabric of uptown Vashon. So it feels like this group would be one to keep up to date as the, plans for the project progress. So I'd love to drop in here and give you all updates on occasion when we hit some kind of milestones. But just, for brief, for those of you who aren't familiar with the food bank or didn't see the Beachcomber article or otherwise weren't in the know about the food bank's plans. So we've been up on Sunrise Ridge where the health center is, and, it's like over 70-year-old buildings that were formerly military owned. We have long known that there's issues up there with accessibility. It's like the primary criteria that we're trying to improve. That's both accessibility just for, people who are transportation limited, or ADA accessibility. Like nothing about those buildings is accommodating for anybody. That said, also, it's got the best view of Rainier, and it's been a fine home for us for over 30 years. So in no way do we mean to disparage the property. It's just, as our programs and, COVID really put in stark relief the importance of food security, especially on an island. So the food bank, I think we're in a more progressive and kind of thoughtful, future-looking place than the organization has ever been before. And knowing that, being in town with higher visibility, more accessibility, on the bus line, and able to just interact with the community more, I think is really going to benefit everyone. So the food bank, but also the community at large. So the conversation about the food bank moving to the church has been going on for over 5 years, when I don't know if many of you knew Pastor Paul, the pastor at the church who was the predecessor of Pastor Mark, who's currently there. Paul was on the food bank's board for a while. And as the board of the food bank had been kind of, not really intensely, but casually looking around at other properties, multiple different options, Paul suggested that part of their kind of vision for the property of the Methodist Church is that it become an asset to the whole community and, not just to the conference. So any of you who are familiar with the property know it's largely underutilized. And the congregation itself, like so many across the country and in the Pacific Northwest, is kind of shrinking. So they're going through a process right now of like planning strategically and kind of reimagining their role in the community, just as the food bank is, becoming this it's always been important, but really becoming this like institutional kind of anchor for lots of folks, like multi-generation islanders who are having a hard time, eking out an existence in the expensive world we live in. So the confluence of those two things, the church trying to make that really valuable and wonderful property kind of an asset to the community, and our need to be more accessible, has all just kind of synced up. So we're just really, the conversation has been live for years, like I said, and we're just building momentum. We're on the cusp of having a long-term ground lease in place, which is really exciting because it's a baseline 30-year lease with 2 options for 10-year renewal. So we're really, getting our foothold. It's like the food, we only plan to move once. This is not, we're not jumping around every couple of years. So we want to really do it right. Let's see, when the conversation started about the food bank moving to that property, the notion was that we would rent some space in the church's education building, which for any of you who know it is that small single-story building that's got classrooms in it that's next to the sanctuary. But since, again, through COVID and the food bank going through this kind of self-realization process, was like that, one room in that education building plus a new food storage. King County doesn't want us to call it a warehouse, which is fine. It's a food storage building. That new building will be built where the playground exists currently. And now the conversation has evolved so that we're going to buy the entire education building from the church. So we'll own those 2 physical structures, and then we'll pay the long-term ground lease for the land it sits on. Which to me, and for both parties, there's right of first refusal built in there. So it really feels like we're, as long as we have the support of, the community, which we have for a long time, and, our relationships really growing stronger, we have really kind of secured our future, I think, in town. We're currently, just getting into, we're not quite in contract, but about to be with architect and general contractors. And then we will have to step into the big scary world of King County permitting, which, I'm told can take and this might be undershot, but anywhere from 15 to 18 months these days. So it's looking like earliest we'd be, doors open, open for business up there in the Q4 of 2025, I think. And of course, we'll be, mounting a capital campaign. Project costs right now are looking, it's hard to tell because we don't have full design from the architects we're working with, but it's looking like somewhere between $2 and $3 million, and probably closer to 3, because I think we'd like to build in some, we already have ample operating reserve, but we'd like to maintain that. So, because the process of moving is going to be very exciting. So, and we're it's been a long time coming. So we're very excited and plan to structure a lot of really intentional stakeholder engagement opportunities. So the part of the reason why I'd love to, give you all frequent updates. And, so those will both be in a very general way, like the whole community, is welcome. We're interested in making sure people know that we have every intention, again, of being good neighbors, but also for kind of specific focus groups. Like, I would love to, engage with the folks who live on the private easement that runs back. I can't remember what the number of it is, but that's just right south of the church property. I'll be talking with the Chamber of Commerce soon. And, we just want to make sure everybody knows that we think the food bank moving uptown is going to really kind of deepen the culture and again, like become part of the fabric up there. And it's very exciting. I also mentioned when I, put a bug in John's ear earlier, it strikes me that, in the next handful of years, the food bank, which is very foot trafficked, like, humans are our capital. The food bank moving up there, the health center is going to relocate closer to town. And Vashon household will have that, new affordable housing structure going up. So those are all three very human, intensive operations. And it seems to me that we should be starting the conversation now with King County about what we can do as far as increasing multimodal and pedestrian bicycle access on that stretch of the highway. Because, there's a broad shoulder and you can walk around, but all of a sudden we'll have, healthcare, food bank, and low-income housing all in about like a mile away from each other. So any questions? I'll put my email address in the chat so anybody can ask questions here, or if something occurs to you in the middle of the night and you just have to send me an email, feel free. So that's my informal spiel.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Oh, I see Linda Moore has her hand up.
Yeah, Linda.
Yes, thank you. I'm really excited about this move, Emily. I wish it could happen sooner.
I know. Me too.
And I'm curious if there's talk about, is the garden going to stay up on Sunrise Ridge?
That's a great question. And I've been like collecting the questions that we get, so that we can, just address them all. And a lot of people have that same question, Linda. So we will probably, so the garden or the property at the Methodist Church doesn't necessarily have space for a big garden. There is a small little plot over there, but right now, as far as I understand, some residents of the Ernestine Apartments use it like a pea patch. And we have no intention of swooping in there and stealing their pea patch from them. So I've actually got meetings to talk with the Master Gardeners Club, who currently help our garden coordinator, Emma Cassidy. They put a lot of labor in there. So there's a lot of different ways I think it could work, that could continue to be a garden, and the food bank benefits from the produce that's grown there. The fruit club, as you know, is like right next to it, and maybe they want to expand their footprint. I think either way, my gut tells me it'll stay as a productive piece of land. Whether or not the food bank has like ownership of it is still, up in the air. But we really, as we're kind of evolving, I think we acknowledge that what the food bank is really good at is like building relationships to procure food to give to people, and that we don't necessarily need to grow it ourselves. Like, for example, the Zen Center has started this farm, and they grow the most wonderful, dense little cabbages and donate them. 100% of their produce comes to the food bank. So even if we don't have a garden in the new location, our connections with local growers who grow food like better than we can, we will continue to offer just as much, if not more, locally grown produce. We're also right now really strengthening our relationship with Matsuda Farm, the land trust operation. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in the future for us to increase the amount of local produce that we purchase. And, like this time of year, the community, Michael Whitmore, who is one of our warehouse managers, was just lamenting how, that zucchini season is starting, and we're going to be like inundated with local zucchini pretty soon. We got to figure out what to do with them. So I guess long answer is that we may not have the garden, but we will continue to focus on providing, locally grown produce. How about Evie? Is it Evie or Evie?
Hi, it's Evie.
Evie.
Thanks, Emily. And thank you for your previous contribution about ferries, and Justin also. I have availed myself recently of the food bank, and it's been really changed our lives for the better. So I wanted to thank you for your leadership and your staff and volunteers. I think this is very exciting. in not least of all because it's going to be the food bank story, but then all those other added stories that you mentioned moments ago and how those impacts will be felt and hopefully will be benefits.
Yeah.
My main question then is, we're thinking about what the new, programming the new site and building. Are you using any sort of sustainability, green building consultation and that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we're in the very early stages. Like I mentioned, we're gonna be entering into contract with Graham Baba, an architecture firm that's based in Seattle, who recently designed the Ballard Food Bank, which is great. We talk about the Ballard Food Bank all the time. It's kind of like the, it's like industry leader these days as far as like a welcoming community space. So I don't have any kind of design particulars about, like if we'll meet certain if we'll get LEED certified or anything, but it's definitely front of mind. And the church really prioritizes, like we're already having conversations about if we can get some grant funding to get, a solar array on top of that education building.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't have any like detail for you because we're just in the pre-design contracting phase. But it's definitely, it's on the table. Yeah.
Thanks. And is there anybody thinking about going beyond like the LEED checklist?
Again, I think that these are conversations I'm excited to really dig into it with the architects. They're just putting their team together.
Okay.
So possibly, we're going to be looking at a whole scope as far as cost and just different options. We did do it was like a very early kind of feasibility study with a group called the Storefront Studio from UW and their, what's it called? Their School of Community.
The built environment. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So a guy named Jim Nichols, this was during the pandemic. He came out and at a pretty, high level, did a needs assessment and looked at the property. So that was at a point in the project when we were like, I don't know, can the food bank even move there? We need to use this design project as a framework to poke holes in it. So we did, we've got some kind of drawings and like a vision, but all of that, like so much of it could change just based on, current realities, which are so much different than they were even just in 2020, like when we talk about cost, especially, it's really not lost on me that like materials and labor are it's very, those are big question marks that I certainly can't answer, but
thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Anybody else? Yeah. Is that Becca?
Becca, yeah, hi. Have you looked into the possibility of other capital campaign fundraising? Because I know there's some open grant periods right now with Washington State Department of Commerce. And
it's such a timely question. I actually just basically was not in the office at all last week because I just turned in an ask to the Building Communities Fund, which maybe is what you're talking about through the Department of Commerce. It's applying for state funding. It was quite a lengthy process. I felt like I was back in grad school a little bit, but yes, we're working with a consulting company called Ostara, also from Seattle, who helped us out with a whole strategic planning process last year. And again, we don't have our like tiered, giving pyramid put together yet, but the goal is to have it be like a really diverse portfolio. So looking to state funds, I'm so happy to say that we've already got a healthy pool of money. You all might remember a couple of years ago in 2020, the Dig property was donated to the food bank. And we then sold the property. And so have a starter, like capital fund starter of over 700,000, which is great because it turns out in the world of fundraising, people, we're more likely to raise the money in an efficient way because we've got that, that pool. People don't want to give you money if you're like, I don't have any money. If you've got a little bit of money, people will give you more. So we're going for a really diverse, to try to hit all the marks, and knowing that, individual contributions and like foundations that we've already got strong relationships with, but we're really focusing on, fostering local relationships too, because it's so much a community asset, like I was saying. So. Thank you. And Becca, I see you just put in the chat, aren't you, that you are a person who lives on that street just south. I would love to reach out to you and see if we can't, get a group of folks together. I did just get a call at the food bank the other day from a woman whose name I'm failing to remember right now, but in classic kind of small town telephone, she was like, I heard that you guys are going to pave that road. I was like, no, that's not, we have no intention of paving that road. And knowing that that's a private easement, the way that property is laid out, there's a kind of open space that there's that kind of swale by the garden in the back, and that will stay open for as a fire truck turnaround, because they'll have to come in through the main parking lot side. So
I don't know if you've ever considered, there's also a big empty lot next door to us immediately across from where you're putting in the warehouse.
We did, I've had some kind of peripheral conversations about that lot, and I've heard that somebody bought it, or there's somebody who's going to build housing there. So
it was sold 2 years ago, but
I
should talk.
hate to break up the party.
No, that's
but
okay.
We really need to move on.
Yeah.
David, would you please?
Okay. Yeah. Next on the agenda is the community update. Ben Stemmer, the new executive director of the Vashon Island Chamber of Commerce, will share highlights of the 2022 Strawberry Festival. I don't see him in attendance, though. Is he here?
Hey, David. Yeah, I'm here. I'm listed under the Vashon Chamber Zoom.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Perfect. All right. Well, I can just jump right into it.
Great.
I'll keep this relatively short and sweet to try and get back a little bit of time here for everyone. For those of you that don't know, I'm Ben Stemmer. I am the new executive director for the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for inviting me to come and share a reflection of the Strawberry Festival. I plan to be joining these meetings going forward and keeping a close ear on the conversations here. I'm a Vashon local myself, so I like to know what's going on. In regard specifically to Strawberry Festival, it was exactly 1 month ago. So it's given us a little bit of time to reflect on what worked well, areas that we have identified for improvement, as well as to get some feedback from our, from the community and our member businesses, specifically on what they saw this year that really stood out in a positive way. And again, a lot of ideas on things we could change and improve on. So it's been an informative month since Strawberry Festival. I think a couple things I'd like to highlight. We're really happy to see that the festival is back to that 3-day, Friday through Sunday duration that we had pre-COVID. And, we were building back up in 2021, but now that's, the hope is to keep it that full 3-day weekend, Friday afternoon, Saturday and Sunday. And to, allow people every opportunity to come out and see what the festival is all about. If you participated or walked through the Strawberry Festival, you might have noticed that there aren't as many vendors as there has been in previous years. And this was an intentional decision to specifically promote Vashon businesses and nonprofit organizations and artists. And so while there might have been fewer booths throughout town, after speaking with the booth vendors and organizers, they saw a pretty drastic increase in activity and participation. So that was a nice thing to be able to see that, while we might not have, 100 booths and said we only have 40, that lack of booths is driving participation towards the people that are setting those booths out or popping out their shops onto the street. So that's something we'd really like to grow is that participation from, local Vashon businesses, nonprofit organizations, and really trying to fill out the street with a Vashon-centric feel and business presence. So that's something that we are going to kind of keep exploring. There has been a lot of feedback from the community on, a lot of people loved it. A lot of people really wanted, some off-island food items and various things like this. So we're going to keep considering that as we move forward. Nothing set in stone for next year. There was a lot of feedback on trying to make it a little bit more accommodating for, single shop artists, try to make better use of the park across the street. And so I think that's something that we're going to try to work with the Parks Department on, filling that space. It's, right in the middle of town, and it's a great venue that went a little underutilized. So again, a lot of opportunities for improvement, but all in all, as the chamber, as the primary facilitator for the event, we were really happy with what we saw. There weren't any major issues that arose. And from, taking random sampling of anyone who was there, it seemed like it was overwhelmingly positively received. So that was kind of a reflection. Again, we're still polling the public and still trying to get ideas and feedback on what we can do to make it really the best festival experience for everyone. And so I guess kind of on that note, I can kind of open it up if you guys have questions. If you would like, if you're really passionate about something that either did happen or didn't happen in festival this year, would love to hear from you outside of this meeting and include you on the planning and facilitation for next year. It's not really a private group that facilitates it. It's really a volunteer effort. So if anyone's interested in that, we'd love to bring you into those conversations and get your support for planning and organizing or just outreach in general. So that's kind of my 2 cents.
I'd like to say that I really love the fact that it was so local, by Vashon for Vashon. That was, and I would love to help keep it as much as possible that way. That makes it really, really community based to do it that way.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the update. And let's see. Next. Okay. Open discussion. Is there anyone here who has an issue, a burning issue that you would like to bring to our attention? Justin.
One thing I forgot to mention earlier. Let's see. Oh gosh, now I'm blocking on the date. Oh, I'm not prepared. Sorry. So long story short, there was a pretty substantial interruption in ferry service. I want to say just 3 days ago. And I just wanted to make a point to point out that the crew who was on the boat that was still running volunteered to stay much later than their scheduled watch to keep that boat running to try and alleviate the traffic problems. They can't do it every time, but I just wanted to make that point there that the crew is really aware of some of the impacts to residents. Some of them live on Vashon themselves, and they really do step up when they have the opportunity to do that.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, John.
Hi. As everyone knows, we will be doing an election coming up, and we're looking to put together an election committee. So if
Point
anyone
of order, John.
Yeah.
John, that's for the next organization. We don't want to confuse people and let them think they're going to have elections for the old organization. Okay.
Never mind.
You'll be on in just a couple minutes.
Okay, Kevin.
Thank you. Just wanted to invite Allison to introduce the motion that she's developed for this meeting.
Okay.
Hey everybody, I'm part of the Equity, Social Justice, and Inclusion Group on Vashon, and we're proposing that a land acknowledgement begin council meetings. That's what we're hoping for. So, Diane, what else do I need to talk about, or what would you like me to talk about? I know I filled you in on what.
Well, David's running the meeting.
Okay.
Okay. I think if we're dealing with parliamentary procedure here, David, you want to?
Yes, Allison, what we need to do, you need to put it in the form of a motion and someone needs to second your motion so that it could be voted on next month, if that's what you have.
Okay, great.
There's also the issue that the board needs to approve it first before it goes to the membership.
That's true also.
In both.
I stand
in both
corrected.
bylaws.
Okay, great.
Yep.
So I've sent it to you, Diane. And I could send it to the council if you want me to do it that way, or what would be best?
You send it to me, we'll make sure it gets on the agenda for the next board meeting, Allison.
Okay, great. And
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion. So is that how it's done?
We can discuss it.
Okay.
You don't need to make a motion.
Okay.
It's already going to go to the board for discussion.
Great. Okay.
Yeah. And but it would be a good thing to discuss it. I think it would be lovely to see the proposed statement. I think everyone would be very interested in this.
Yeah, I want you to read it.
Yeah.
Sure, I can certainly read it. So let me do that. And I've gotten feedback that my mic is not the best. So apologies. Can everybody hear me okay? I'll try to lean forward a little bit.
Not very well. I'm going to post it in the chat as well, Allison.
Okay, great. And you have that I sent to you. Okay, great. So I'm going to go ahead and read it. So this is what we would like read as a land acknowledgement. And we voted, in our group, it was a unanimous decision that we choose this. So please join me in acknowledging and paying respect to the Shwabab, the Vashon Natives people, also known as the Snohomish, who were here before us on ancestral land that we occupy today. They built their homes, told stories, created community, birthed children, fought battles, developed medicine, buried relatives, created art, and lived in unity with the natural world for thousands of years. We pay our respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging. We acknowledge that we have benefited significantly from the careful and intentional care they provided that continues to protect and preserve our natural resources for present and future generations. This acknowledgement does not take the place of authentic relationships with Indigenous communities, but merely serves as a first step in honoring the land and resisting the erasure of Indigenous people, past, present, and future. We acknowledge the genocide and continuous displacement of Indigenous people. We also acknowledge that these lands remain a vital part of the cultural sovereignty to the Shwabab and the Snohomish relatives of present day. And I apologize for butchering some of that. So, some of those words. So, but yeah, so that is the land acknowledgement that we came up with in the Equity, Social Justice, and Inclusion group. So is there any questions for me or anything regarding that?
If you'd like, Allison, we could take a straw poll of the people who are here this evening.
That would be lovely. Thank you.
David, do you want to organize that?
Well, let me see. Do you have it spelled out in the, I'm trying to open it up. Okay.
Point of order, I believe Raina has a hand raised.
Okay, Raina?
You're muted, Raina.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
There's an organization working right now with the Puyallup tribe through Backbone. And it's my understanding that it's not the Snohomish people, it's the Shwabab people who lived here. And after the Treaty of Medicine Creek, they moved on to the Puyallup Reservation. As you know, reservation system aggregated villages from all over the area. So
Yep,
there
so
are.
I understand. So I got my information from Vashon, from the museum, the Heritage Museum, and then I did a lot of research. So that is a concern, and there are many different, people believe different things, and I think, so that is something we could definitely talk about, and I can show you my research. If you're
I work at the Heritage Museum, and I help on the exhibit.
Great. So I did mention the Shwabab people, which I know I'm mispronouncing, yeah, so some people also believe that there was more than one group involved. So yes.
Yeah,
So we could look at that. I guess what I would say to that is let's look at it, and I can be, you know, the lead on that, of course, and I can show you where my information came from, and then where the information came from that I read. You know, we can go through that, and I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I'd be very happy to look at it with you. And
Yeah, I think I think one of the biggest things that I feel strongly about this is this, you know, that people have been here for 10,000 years. And when I've lived here 20 years, and people I talked to always said, oh, people just came here and fished and no one really lived here. And so that's part of, you know, the problem. So anyway,
yeah,
but yeah, I would
definitely.
love to talk with you more about that, Raina. I would love it. And I'm sure there's this is new to me, so this is not what I do for a living. So there's probably going to be some errors. So thank you.
Yeah. Right.
okay. Well, thank you, Raina, for participating in this. I certainly defer to your expertise when it comes to research.
Yeah, it's something that came up in the library all the time. When I worked for 22 years for the library, we developed a file on it, and a number of people, Marshall Soul and Bill Slaughter and the secretary for the tribe, all of these people kept channeling information to us. And now we have, through the museum, there's a conduit open to the tribe, and we often run things by them to get their response and see how, because there's this problem that as outsiders in a native area, we perceive things from all of our background and culture, and inadvertently we offend them quite often. In an effort to do something nice, we actually turn out to offend them because of language or the way we approach things or whatever. So if you want to contact me, I'd be happy to provide access to, you know, kinds of things that the museum crew, you know, they will read and give suggestions. And if you want, we can also forward it to the tribe.
That's a great idea. Perfect. And I think, yeah, there's going to be mistakes made on my end for sure. So I just think getting, you know, things started and having some rough drafts. I definitely think of this as a working draft. And I know, you know, that things are going to change. The draft.
Yeah.
So that sounds great. I will reach out and contact you, and we can talk about this.
I'll put my email in the chat.
Okay, great. Thanks, Raina.
Sure.
Okay. Is there another hand up? No. All right. Diane had indicated that she thought a straw poll would be a good idea. We have 27 participants now. I don't know if we have a quorum or not, but it doesn't matter for a straw poll.
Doesn't matter for a straw poll. I'm thinking now maybe, you know, based on all the discussion and realizing now that it's a draft, I think maybe we should move on. I think that was a wonderful discussion, but it overrules the need for a straw poll at this point. I think.
Point of order.
Okay.
Point of order.
Kevin? Yes.
I just want to be clear. I understand that Allison read the land acknowledgement, but Allison's motion is that the council open its meetings with a land acknowledgement. Do I understand correctly, Diane, that we've done appropriate steps so that in the next VMICC meeting, the agenda will contain the motion to open the council meetings with a land acknowledgement, and that will be subject to a vote in that meeting in September. Is that correct?
Well, if a motion so general might be voted on. It needs a second.
Does it need a second in this meeting?
Yeah.
Allison, if you want to make that motion, I'll second it.
Yeah. Read it out, Allison. And it's a general motion. It's not the motion with the wording you just mentioned. I can't hear you.
We propose a land acknowledgement begin council meetings. Is that what you're asking me for?
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Great.
Okay.
And I do want to say one thing really quick. So Diane, I think it's important to say that, you know, things like the land acknowledgement and definitely what Raina said, like a lot of these things that we're learning how to do, they need to be, you know, I'm not saying that this is, you know, this is something that might need to be a living document. Like at times we might look back and it might need to be changed again. And I definitely agree with Raina that there needs to be some more contact and research. So I just wanted you to know that.
Right, thank you. But it also, I've just realized it also needs to go to the board first.
Okay.
Yeah, so it has to be approved by the board. Even this simple thing that we read a land acknowledgement needs to be approved by the board first, Kevin, because we're talking about a change in standing rules. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
To even do it. So
So
we'll
if you could
talk
please
about this.
I just
Okay.
want to be clear, if you could clarify the steps that Allison should take next, that would be helpful.
Well, Allison's already done it. She's made it clear that we should be discussing this at a board meeting and that we should have a land acknowledgement. And the committee has done that. So we have a committee, and the committee is an advisory committee to the board, and the committee has said they want to do this. So now it goes to the board, and the board will discuss and make a motion and pass that, whatever that will be, and then it can go back to the community to affirm the vote of the board, and then it would go into the standing rules, and then it would be
Okay.
permanent.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying the steps.
Yeah.
And one other point of order, I think Hunter had the recommendation that we introduce this motion also in the VMCC meeting, which is to follow right after this VMICC meeting. So I believe Hunter, Allison,
that. I don't think you have to do that because we have to see. I think it's okay to just leave it as is for now.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. That means
The board will address it. Both boards will address it. I mean, the new board will address it too.
Oh, perfect. Just want to be clear that we've provided all the inputs required to move to the next step. So thank you for that.
They have been, yes. We'll definitely be moving to the next step.
Thank you. And thank you, Allison, for coordinating that.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Next on the agenda, let's see. We have the next meeting date is Monday, September 19th, and I'll now adjourn the meeting of the Vashon-Maury Island Community Council and hand over the proverbial gavel to Diane so she can start the meeting of the Vashon-Maury Community Council.
Thank you very much, David. I will be very efficient with this. I know everybody wants to get going. I would like to start with a new business. Elections for new board members will take place this fall. The board is elected every even year for 2-year terms. So, question for everybody who's here. You want to see your community council be more effective? You want to see the community council take more action on island issues? If you have at least 3 hours a week to give to the cause, you can make a big difference. Self-nomination forms for the board will be available soon. And the board will be appointing an elections committee. And now here's where I would like John to say what he wanted to say.
I've been asked to coordinate that. So if anyone out there among the membership is interested in being on that committee, it would be real helpful to contact me. and send me your email address, and I'll follow up, and we'll put that committee together so that we can get this on the road and solved. That's it.
And I'm putting your email in the chat.
Thank you.
Just want to be sure I'm doing it right here. J Raffleter 46 at gmail.com. Okay, that should be right. Very good. And then I would like to briefly discuss membership. Membership in the Vashon-Maury Community Council is free, but you need to actually sign up to be a member, not just show up at a meeting if you wish to vote or make a motion. So you can contact me to see if you are a member or sign on to be a member. And I will put my email here. There we go. Now, open discussion, questions on what's going on with the new organization. You just want to go home, don't you? Go to bed. Me too. I don't see any hands up. All right, we're good. We're good to go. Thank you very much. That wasn't too terribly late. So we'll keep things moving along, and please get in touch if you have any questions or issues, etc. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming tonight and hanging in there. We had a lot of interesting discussions tonight, and there's many more to come. Okay, good night, everyone.
Okay, good night.
Yes, and David, you can end the recording now.
Okay.
I think.
I could.
Night, everybody. Thanks, Diane.